Are you considering house hacking? Maybe my personal house hacking story will bring you some inspiration and give you some ideas. Hello and welcome. My name is Peter B and I welcome you here at My First Million, where we are achieving our financial goals together. As said in the introduction, I have experiences in house hacking. In fact, I have been doing it for close to, I believe, 10 years now, very close to 10 years. And I want to share with you my story and hope that you can maybe also have some ideas based on that. And this might help you winning financially or at least give you some financial boost. There are many ways to do house hacking. You could get a roommate, you could buy a duplex and rent one part of the duplex out. So my story is maybe a little bit of a different story than the common stories that you hear, but it probably is also applicable in many markets, even internally in the US, for instance, where you have different kind of housing markets. So I'm a Swiss coming from Europe, but I have been living in Taiwan for almost 10 years now. So when I was still back in Switzerland, I used to work and then I saved up some money and I bought an apartment. Or better to say, my wife and I together bought an apartment for our future. And we lived in the apartment for a while until we decided to move to Taiwan. So after moving to Taiwan, I realized that the housing market here is very different than the Swiss housing market. Especially we are living in the capital city in Taipei, where the real estate prices are very high because of the very dense area. There are a lot of people living in the close proximity of one another. So space is limited and therefore getting expensive. And in contrast to Switzerland, you will see many high rises here. So there's a big contrast between my neighborhood in Switzerland and my neighborhood now here in Taipei. In Switzerland, I have been living in a suburban area where it was pretty convenient to live. In contrast, in Taipei here, I'm living in the outer skirts of the city. However, it is very dense still, even in the outer skirts. So in fact, I can just take a look out of the window behind the monitors and I see thousands of apartments in my view, just in close proximity. Maybe within a few hundred meters, I see thousands of apartments here. And we are pretty close to the city border. So outside it's getting rural pretty fast. So this is a big difference. And this big difference in how many people are living here and how dense the people are living together also is reflecting in the housing market. In addition, there are other factors that also play along into the differences between the Taipei real estate market and the Swiss real estate market, where I have been coming from, is the rate of ownership. In Taiwan, most of the households, I believe over 80% of the households, own their own apartment or house. Most of the time it's apartment, but some of them are house. But the majority are owners, are real estate owners, at least for the apartment where they live in. So only a small percentage of people or households are renting their apartments. In contrast, this is a big difference to Switzerland. In Switzerland, I believe more than 50% of the households are renting. And only less than 50%, maybe around 45%, if I'm not mistaken, are owning their own apartments or houses. So back in Switzerland, I was in the minority by buying an apartment and owning my apartment. But when I come to Taiwan, I made the opposite decision. I'm going again into the minority group and I didn't buy an apartment. Instead, the place we are living here in is rented out. So what I'm doing is basically trying to profit from geo-arbitrage. If you compare the house prices between Switzerland and Taipei, you would probably think they're probably more or less the same. It depending on which area in Taipei you're living or in which area you're living in Switzerland, it could be more or less higher or lower. But maybe if I just compare the locations where I'm living and the locations where I used to be living in Switzerland, the house prices here in Taipei are higher than the house prices in Switzerland. Or also the same applies for apartments. In contrast, the monthly rents for similar apartments are significantly different between the two markets. I would say for a similar or comparable apartment between the two locations, probably Swiss francs are at least double as high, even not more than double as high. So what we are doing now in our situation, we are renting out our Swiss apartment, and the rent that we are receiving is covering both the expenses of the mortgage and other expenses related to the apartment. Plus, it's also covering our rent here. We are even cash flowing positively some money every month. But there's a second factor that plays along into our calculation that you might also want to take into consideration when you come to make your house hack decisions. If you are considering something similar like this, where you're using geo-arbitrage to your advantage. In Switzerland, I would say the apartment size of our apartment would be just ideal for my family. So it would be my wife and me, plus we have 2 kids, a small boy and a small girl. So as they're small now, of course, later a boy and a girl maybe each need to have a separate room sometime in the future. However, as long as they're small here in Taiwan, we have decided to just rent 1 room less. They're small enough and they can still share 1 room together. So we are not only taking advantage of geo-arbitrage, but we also here for the time being decided to downsize significantly. So our apartment here is significantly smaller than the one in Switzerland, and potentially also significantly smaller than the apartment that we would need in the long term. However, I think even though it's small here, I feel like it's just right matched for us, considering that our financial path is also important for us in our current stage of life. So, do you have some experiences with house hacking? What is your house hack story, or what are you considering? What strategies are you considering to bring down your housing expense? Please write down in the comments below. I hope that this video gives some inspiration to some of you out there. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and especially I look forward to seeing you winning financially.